Good morning. Do y'all see this new thing right here? I think y'all had it last week, right, Jerry? I just saw it this morning and come in and started playing with it. It has a lever here that does this. Isn't that cool? It has a lever here that I've been told if you touch it wrong, it like shoots up. So I'm going to be careful there. It has wheels, though, which I'm really excited about because if Jude needs preached to, I can bring notes and all. Clear over here, right? So just be careful. I'm mobile now, which is awesome. All right. Hey, it's good to be back with you. Our mission trip to Peru went awesome. The team was great. It was really just such a privilege to be on the trip with these group of folks, and the ministry we serve down there is a really great ministry, and it was just really a blessing. It was energizing for me. Many of the team, from what I've heard, it was just great for them, and just so thankful for that opportunity that we had to go serve. It's always good to go, and it's always good to come home, and so it's good to be back here and to be with you here this morning. I want to thank Jeremy. He preached through chapter 11 2 weeks ago. Very challenging chapter, did a great job. Certainly appreciate him and the diligence he put in on that. And Jerry last week on starting chapter 12, our transition here, that we're going to piggyback a lot on today. So I hope you heard last week. And if not, you need to go reread chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. I know it's a big lift here, quick, but those two. And because we're going to build on that today, starting in chapter 12, verse 3. Chapters 1 through 11 taught us theology. Now, 12 through 15 are going to teach us how to live in a way that matches that theology. Verses 1 and 2 are sort of an encapsulation, a thesis statement of now what he's going into in chapters 12 through 15. And so we need to understand the thesis statement so that now we understand his unpacking of that thesis statement over the next several chapters. One of the things that I want us to remember is that this is a letter that was both written to and be read by or heard by the church in Rome. Not just individuals, but the church in Rome. That everyone who participated in the writing of the letter and everyone who's now hearing it or reading it, receiving it, has this in mind. They all know the context of the church in Rome. They understand the conflict that we've discussed at length over the last several months between the two factions in the Roman church, that Paul is seeking to unify them back together as a church. And so Paul did, that the first 11 chapters would unify them around the same theology, that they'd all be on the same page theologically. And so now as he's heading into these final chapters, Paul believes that now how they live, how it is they conduct themselves as a church will unify them together as well. That if they live according to their theology, they will be unified, not divided. So as we read these, I want us first to have kind of a communal lens, if you will, to see this from a group perspective, if you will. Secondarily, as individuals, knowing that if us as individuals do not own our part, if we do not accurately live out what he's telling, then we as a church will not. But we need to understand that this is first and not lose sight of the fact that this is first written to them as a group. The reality is that our maturity is revealed in our relationships. The great commandment that Jesus gives defines three relationships: our relationship with God, our relationship with one another, and our relationship with ourselves. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. He says there is no greater commandment than these. And so our true maturity is revealed in how we love in each of these three relationships. And so we can win every Bible quiz, we can know all of the answers, we can know the theology, we can have all of the facts, but without love, we are little more than a clanging gong or cymbal, Paul tells us in the 1 Corinthians. These chapters are Paul focusing in on what it looks like to love well. He makes it clear that we need to be in loving relationship. And he's going to tease this out. That without a robust and deep love for God, there's no way that we're going to love one another. We must start there. And so Paul's progression of thinking here in Romans is 1 through 11. Let's make sure we're on the same footing theologically. And without that, we can't love well. But if we know 1 through 11, but we don't love well, then we're incomplete. We're not living as we should in response to what we have said is true. And so the goal of Romans, the whole of it, has been to unify the church. And in two different ways, Paul has sought to do that. And so now, in these chapters, he is wanting to unify them in their relationships by showing what it means to love well. So let's start in verse 3, and we will continue from there. He says, "For by the grace given to me, I say to every one of you, not to think more highly of yourself than you ought to think, but to think with sober discernment, as God has distributed to each of you a measure of faith. For just as in one body we have many members, and not all members serve the same function, so we who are many in one body in Christ, and individually we are members who belong to one another." So the church in Rome is in conflict. They have been at each other. He's trying to unify them. He makes it clear that when we are in conflict, we often elevate ourselves and diminish the other person. We elevate ourselves and think the worst of them while giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt and way more grace than we give them. And I'm sure the Roman church was doing exactly this in their conflict. I'm sure they were at each other and each side was putting the other down and each side giving themselves the benefit of the doubt. And Paul says, don't do that. Don't think more highly of yourself than you ought to. Be humble, in other words. That each of us should have a humility about ourselves. And when we are truly humble, the us and them thing goes away because we've been humbled. In many ways, humility is placing ourselves under another person for the purpose of lifting them up. When we're humble, we approach differences and conflicts and tensions differently. We have a completely different posture. It's no longer about the arrogance or the pride of my position in winning. It's a position of humility. So he starts with humility and he says, thinking with sober discernment, how we interact with each other, how we interact in these situations with a teachability, with a curiosity, a searching, an open-mindedness to the fact that I may not have all the facts. It's interesting, he says, sober discernment. Discernment of what? What it is that we are discerning in the midst of this? I think it's God's will. I think it's God's truth. What is true in the midst of this? That our first thing we are trying to discern is God's will. That we should desire more than who wins or loses, God's will. And that be chief. He says to do this by the measure of your faith, or as is fitting by the level of your maturity, depending on your translation. The fact of the matter is, we've each been walking with Jesus different periods of time. We have different experiences. We have different levels of maturity. And by that, we have different experiences and such with how we discern God's will. For some, this may be quite easy or natural. Others may be difficult. Maybe some have done this many times, maybe others not. That there is a level of maturity here that impacts how well we do this. And Paul's simply saying, do your best. Do the best you can to discern God's will according to your maturity. Whether you're very mature or not, whether you've been walking with God for a while or not, When we each are doing our best, there is a mindset. There's an intentionality, a genuineness in our searching. That if that is truly our heart's desire, that I want to know God's will, not my will, that alone changes our posture. That alone is a reflection of humility. Without humility, you won't have that posture. And so we start into loving each other with a posture of humility and a posture of discernment. As we learn in verses 1 and 2, these don't come natural. These are things we're going to have to work at. That even just these two simple things, humility and discernment, are going to require some sacrifice on our part. In order to do them well, they're going to require that we in fact have been transformed and not conformed. But this is where Paul starts. And then he goes into an analogy. And in some ways, the analogy is stating the obvious, but it's an important analogy for us to think about. And that is that we are all different. He uses the analogy of a human body, that each of us would say that we have one body, but yet we have many different parts that make up the one body. None of us would divide out our body and say that I have 50 different bodies because I have different parts. We have one body, just many different parts. He's using this as a picture of the church, that we are to be one church. We are Christ's body. Even though we each play a different role, we are a different part within the body. This means that just like our human bodies have all these different parts with their different purposes, each of us have been intentionally designed uniquely and have been intentionally placed within this body uniquely. That our uniquenesses are not by accident. That God has a purpose in bringing us together in our differences. If we all served the exact same function, if we all had the exact same role, we wouldn't be needed here. Because we'd already have 10 of you. But the fact that each of us are unique means that we are all needed and that God purposefully put us here. And we need to see the beauty and the value in our diversity of being here. Now, something interesting happened to me while I was typing out this sermon. As I was typing, my foot got upset. And my foot was upset because my hands, it thought, were typing incorrectly. And so my foot told my hands, hands, if you would just type heel first and roll across the keyboard like this, you would type better. And my hands were a bit offended by this. And so they torted back at my feet and they said, feet, I'm tired of this. You walk all wrong. If you would simply walk on your tippy toes, tickling along the floor, you would walk a whole lot better and we'd all be better off for this. Well, my foot didn't like this, of course, and I was typing at a table which was a little unstable, and so my foot started kicking the table, so make it harder for my hands to type, as the thing moved around. And this, of course, irritated my hands, and so they reached down, untied my shoe, and threw my shoe across the room and said, I'm not putting it back on. Now, that's absurd, isn't it? Except that's how we act, isn't it? In the church. That someone does something in a way we don't like. And we think, hey, hand, I wouldn't do it that way. And in fact, I wouldn't do it that way so much, I'm going to make it hard for you to do it. I'm going to work against you. And the foot says, actually, I'm going to make it so hard, I'm going to work against you. I'm going to not help at all. I might even start a prayer list for you so we can gossip about it. You love that, don't you? We do this all the time. It's absurd when it's our bodies. Why isn't it absurd in the body? Because it should be equally as absurd. It should be equally as ridiculous for us to think that way. But that is exactly how we think. That's how the Roman church was thinking. And we do the same thing. Where we don't act like we are one. We don't act like we're on the same team. We don't act like we're together in this. We don't love each other well. Because there are differences. And you're different than me, and I would do it different than you, and you did it that way, and I'm not crazy about it, and I would rather do it this way. And we act absurdly. And here's what we lose sight of in all of this, that in our physical bodies, both the feet and the hands are led by one head. The reason why our bodies don't act in this absurd way is because our head organizes it. And our hands and our feet submit to what our heads say. If we don't, we'd be at the hospital quickly, wouldn't we? And the body also has a head. His name's Jesus. And if we're wise, we also will submit to his leadership. We will be humble enough. We will be discerning enough to be equally as organized in following what he has for us. We will understand that God will not tell the hands to do something different than the feet, or the feet to do something different than the hands. We will understand that God will not want the different parts of his body to contradict one another. We will value each other. The hands will realize that without the feet walking me over here to this place, I can't do the thing my hands need to do. Or if my feet take the time to walk me over here and my hands don't do it, I've wasted steps, like wandering around the mall all day with no purpose. Not that I've done that. I love doing that with you, by the way. It's my favorite. Do we trust one another? Do we trust each other? Do we trust each other in humility and discernment that the hands are listening to the head and the feet are listening to the head? Or do we just question each other and we take God, the head, out of the loop? See, when we don't act as one body, we're not trusting each other and we're certainly not trusting God. And Paul is making the point that, hey, Roman church, you all are different and that's on purpose. And so now what's your posture? And the being divided isn't acceptable. Being against each other isn't acceptable. You are each unique. You each have your strengths, you each have your weaknesses, you have your different backgrounds, you have your different experiences and educations and all these different things. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Now, are you humble enough and discerning enough to let the head lead you? Are we going to support each other? Are we going to encourage each other? Verse 5 is interesting. It says, because we belong to each other. See, it's actually my foot's best interest for my hands to do what they do best, and vice versa. And there's this belonging to each other in that we don't divide out our bodies. We don't say I have 50 bodies because I have 50 body parts, and I have one, that we all belong to each other. We are all part of the one. And that if we have this perspective that when you win, I win, and when they win, we win, and when you win, when we have this perspective, it all changes because we understand unity even in the midst of our differences. That we want God's glory, we want God's win more than our own. That only happens with humility and discernment. Paul continues with this analogy in some ways. He says we each have different gifts according to the grace given to us. If the gift is prophecy, that individual must use it in proportion to his faith. Second time we've seen that phrase. If it is service, he must serve. If it's teaching, he must teach. If it's exhortation, he must exhort. If it's contributing, he must do so with sincerity. If it's leadership, he must do so with diligence. If it is showing mercy, he must do so with cheerfulness. Paul starts with the gift of prophecy. This is a tricky one. It's a difficult one. There's kind of two flavors of this, if you will, two aspects. One is forthtelling and one is foretelling. Both have their risks. Foretelling is the idea of telling the future. This is risky because you're assuming you know what God has planned for the future when you do this. You're saying, I know what God has in store and this is what it is. And we know from Scripture the risk of this is that if you're wrong, God takes it seriously and he wants you put to death. That speaking on behalf of God of what the future holds is serious business. And forthtelling is the idea of speaking truth, calling a spade, rebuking someone if necessary. calling out sin when needed, speaking truth clearly. This is risky too, because you can easily become conceited. You can become arrogant. You can think you know more than everyone else. You can think you're holier than those that you feel called to tell that they're wrong. And so prophecy, if not careful, can tear a church apart. As one side condemns another and one makes predictions about another, one side stands arrogantly over the bloodied bodies of the other with a chasm of relationship between. Prophecy should be very carefully exercised. It should take a long time to bake with one's maturity, as it says. It should be exercised with much restraint, with much humility, and much discernment. He then lists 3 gifts right in a row, and each one are fairly simple. If it's service, serve. Teach, teach. Exhortation, exhort. And then his tone changes on the next one. His verbiage changes. These 3 said, if you have these gifts, do them, exercise them. Those who have the gift of contributing or generosity, do so with sincerity. It doesn't say if you have the gift of generosity, give. So if you have the gift of contributing, do so with sincerity, meaning not obligation. That it should be from the heart with sincerity. And the next one changes too. If you have the gift of leadership, do so with diligence. Meaning it shouldn't be half-hearted, it shouldn't be casual, it shouldn't be like self-serving. You would lead with diligence. The next one is mercy, and to do so with cheerfulness. There should be a joy that a person isn't getting what they deserve. There should be joy in that. So if your gift is mercy, do it with joy. When we each live our gifts well with humility and discernment, we are unified. Because that means the body is working together as God intended to under the direction of the head. That we each are coming together with our different gifts. We are respecting each other. We are valuing each other. We are cheering for each other. And we are doing God's will. We'll be unified. So if we understand what's happened in chapters 1 through 11, we will understand that yes, we are different and there's a purpose, and how do we live that way appropriately. Now, starting in verse 9, there's another paragraph. And this paragraph is a series of statements like staccato, short notes at the plucking of a string instrument. These short statements of pluck, 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 pluck as he marches through the paragraph, defining love for us in different ways as he goes. Each, although very short and simple, should challenge us and how it is we live together, how it is that we love each other. He starts that love must be without hypocrisy. Must be without hypocrisy, meaning it must be genuine. Love must be sincere. That we don't love for my gain. That's not love. That I'm loving you for my gain. Love isn't about me, it's about loving the other person. Love isn't just words, it's honest actions and intentions. It's not pretending to love somebody. It's that I truly care. 1 Timothy 1:5 says, love should come from a pure heart and a good conscience and sincere faith. If we're loving well, it's actually his love, the love of the head of the body, flowing through us into the people around us. It's that we have made our lives available, that we positioned our heart such that he can love through us, and so we are genuinely loving them because he is loving them, which is going to require sacrifice and humility on our part, discernment on how that looks. If we love without hypocrisy. He then says, abhor what is evil and cling to what is good. The word abhor means to hate what is evil. My question First is, have we become desensitized to good and evil? To even know the difference? To even know this I'm supposed to hate? Have we become so blurry in this that there are things that should be over here that we've allowed to creep to the middle and we're kind of unsure about them? I don't know. But he says we should abhor, we should hate what is evil and cling to what is good. When I hear this word cling, I think of like a shipwreck, and there's debris floating in the ocean and clinging to a piece of debris for dear life. It's like there's these little pieces of good debris floating in an ocean of evil. When you find one, cling to it. Don't let it go. Even if it's a piece of good debris you didn't create, but somebody else created. Somebody who's wired different than you and did it different than you would have. Are you still clinging to that? Are you still celebrating it? Are you still seeing the light, the goodness in the midst of the darkness of what that thing is, even though it's not yours? And you questioned it? Are we clinging to what is good? Like our lives depend on it, like our church life depends on it. He says, be devoted to one another with mutual love, showing eagerness in honoring one another. Those first two words, to be devoted to one another. To be devoted. This isn't casual, isn't flippant. It's not conditional. I love you if you behave yourself. I love you if you do as I like, as I want, as I think. He said, I'm devoted to you. I'm committed to loving you. It should be hard to come between us because we're so devoted to each other. In mutual love. So it's a two-way street. Each of us have to own our own way. But if we're all devoted to each other in mutual love, that creates unity, right? It's hard to come by in our world today. That should be something that sets us apart from the world out there. Our default setting should be to come together, not to come apart, because we are devoted to each other. And we're eager to honor each other, even in those differences, even in that thing that you did in the way I wouldn't have done it. I should be eager to honor you in that. Say, did you see what they did? Isn't that awesome? With genuineness, not saying, did you see it? Even though I wouldn't have done it that way. But to truly celebrate. Did you see what they did? That was awesome. That we would lift each other up. We would champion and celebrate each other and be looking for every opportunity to do it. Something I'm not personally great at. I don't celebrate things well. My perfectionism means I expect it to be that way. And so the fact that you did it that way, I'm like, yeah, good job. But that's not good. I'm trying, the staff can tell you, I'm trying to get better at celebrating what each other are doing. Do not lag in zeal. Be enthusiastic in spirit. Serve the Lord. Serving God shouldn't be a have to. It should be a get to. Zeal is energy, it's excitement, it's enthusiasm. There should be an excitement about, I get to serve God in this way, whatever it might be. But there's this hard part about this, and that is that when we serve God, usually we're serving people, and people are hard. And so often it becomes a have to. It's like, I have to serve them? I signed up, I'll be there. But there should be zeal. When we understand how to love well, even in those hard times, even in those inconvenient times, the difficult moments, yes, I get to be here. I get the privilege of being used by God for His love to flow through me into this person's life. What a privilege that is. And my heart is positioned differently because of it. Verse 12 has 3 of them, really short and sweet and fast. It says, rejoice in hope, endure in suffering, persist in prayer. We all need hope. Without hope, we die. We give up. We will all suffer in various ways. And the question is, are we enduring well? And not just you enduring well, are we enduring well together in it? So we come around each other. And prayer is the most important and powerful tool we have, especially for one another. Do we give up on it quickly? The fact of the matter is when we're in conflict, we don't do any of these really well. We actually hope the other person runs out of hope, so they'll give up on their stubborn position of what they think God has called them to do, and they'll come back to doing it my way. We hope they have some struggle with their foolish ideas, so that they'll come back to doing it my way. And I'll pray for you that you change your mind to do it my way. But that's not what he's calling us to, is it? That we need to remind each other of the hope we have in Jesus. That we need to walk with each other. When one of us is going through a hard time, when we have an injury of some kind with this part of the body, that the body would rally around. We'd come and walk with each other, enduring through that. And we would pray for one another without ceasing. When these happen, it's hard to be in conflict, isn't it? When we're in it together. In all of these ways. This is what Paul has in mind. That we collectively would give each other hope and carry our burdens and pray for one another. 13 says, contribute to the needs of the saints. That's the church, that's us. Pursue hospitality. See, every one of us are going to be in positions of need at some point or another. And if you know I have your back and I know you have my back, and we back that up with occasionally when you're in need, I help you, and when I've been in need, you help me. Now we have bonded together in a unique way. There's a brotherhood formed there that can't be formed without struggle. Struggle is good in these ways. That we need to be contributing to each other's lives in these meaningful ways. And hospitality is this idea of hosting one another, getting to know each other. It makes us much more real to each other. See, it's easy for me to be in conflict with someone I don't know because they're a faceless or a nameless person. They're just that person I don't agree with. But when we are hospitable and we come together and we share a meal, and we tell stories, and we laugh at jokes together. We learn about our kids. We get to hear our life story, our now story. Now we know each other. See, now we're bonded in an important way. So now it's harder for us to be in conflict because I know you, and you know me. And trust is built. And conflict melts away. Are we serving each other? Are we hosting each other? He says, bless those who persecute you. Bless, do not curse. He's acknowledging the natural thing we all do, that when somebody comes against us, we curse. We come back against them, whether verbally or otherwise. He's saying, no. That's not the right response. We bless them. The world's way, when we conform to that, is to curse, is to come back. That's our pride coming through. That's the I need to win that comes through. But he says, no. Bless them. And you notice he doesn't differentiate between someone in the church who you disagree with or someone outside the church. But it's the same either way. In 15, he says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. The idea of empathy is that we are so connected, we so identify with each other that like we're in it together. It's this kind of term of gutturalness, that the gutturalness of whatever it is for you, the weeping or the joy, the gutturalness of that is going to be in my gut too. That we are so in it together that your pain hurts me or your joy lifts me up, that we are in this together, whatever it may be. That we are so connected that we weep together and we cheer for joy together. Those are important relationships. It's bonds together. If you've ever been in one of these positions, maybe you just happen to be present when someone has one of the worst days of their life or one of their best. It brings you together in a way that you just can't duplicate. Are we willing to walk together in these kind of ways? 16 says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not be conceited. If you're haughty or conceited, you won't be in harmony with others. And odds are right now, if there's some situation where there's conflict in your life, odds are it's because there's haughtiness present, not humility and discernment. Unity only exists where there's humility, because we're too different of people. We allow haughtiness to be present, it squashes the unity. And you notice it says, even with the lowly. Remember in the Roman church, there were these different divisions, these different factions, and one of them was the classes, the upper class and the lower class, and the classes between. And he's saying, don't just be respectful of those in your class, but of those even who are lowly. And I'm sure for those in the room who are of lowly class, even those up above, to be respectful. There is to be humility between us, no matter our differences. 17 says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Consider what is good before all people. If possible, so far as it depends upon you, live peaceably with all people. My dad had a saying I heard a million times, that two wrongs don't make a right. Somebody's wronged you, your wronging them back doesn't make you right. Two wrongs don't make a right. So when somebody has done evil, we don't repay back with evil. It's not what we do. It doesn't make us right. It just makes us wrong too. So far as it depends upon you, because there is two sides to this conflict, so far as it depends upon you, you take ownership of your part to live at peace. Do your part in asking yourself, humility, discernment, what is best? Without humility and discernment, you're not going to ask that question. You're just going to want to win. What is best here? What is God's will here? How can I, for my part, find a peaceful solution? That sounds a lot like unity. How can I find a path to unity in this? We finish out in 19. He says, do not avenge yourselves, dear friends, but give place to God's wrath. For it's written, the vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Rather, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing this, you will be heaping burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The idea of vengeance or avenging is the idea of dispensing wrath, the idea of taking judgment in your own hands, putting yourself in God's position, saying, I am the arbiter of truth here. I am the arbiter of justice. And this person has done this, and therefore they deserve this. And I'm going to do it. It's not very humble, is it? This is, in many ways, a test of our trust of Him. Do we really trust that He knows right from wrong? Do we really trust that He knows justice? Do we really trust that whatever He brings about for wrath, for justice, for blessing, for whatever it may be, is true? Do we trust Him with that part? Or do we want to take this for ourselves? Say, I only trust me with this one. This means that we have to have patience with him. It means there's going to be some enduring, some sacrifice of whatever the wrong is. Remember that living sacrifice thing. But he says even more than that, if you look. It's not just that. But it's in the waiting, bless him. If he's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him water. So you've been wronged. Your response isn't vengeance, it's blessing. It's meeting needs. It's tangibly loving, serving the person. That sounds otherworldly, doesn't it? Like difficult at best, let's be honest. That this person has wronged me and I'm going to bless them. That's only going to happen if you've been transformed and you're willing to be a sacrifice. Each of these bullets that have come through this chapter are contrary to our fleshly human nature. We're not going to do these naturally. They're going to take some work. They align perfectly with how the world operates around us. I'm sorry, they don't align with how the world operates. They're contrary to that, right? That if we're going to live this way, we're going to be swimming upstream in that way. It means that if we're going to live according to what God is giving to us here through Paul, we're going to have to be very intentional. We're not going to stumble into this accidentally. It's going to take a sacrifice on our part, a living sacrifice, a sacrifice every day of taking up our cross and following him again today, and then again today. And then when today is tomorrow, we'll do it again. Life this way isn't easy. There's nowhere here that says easy. It's just what we've been called to. The only way we're going to do this is if we allow him to lead, if we allow him to live through us. See, in our own nature, in our own strength, in our own being, we won't do this, any of it. We'll just follow the world's path. We'll conform nicely. The only way we're transformed is if he lives through us. The only way we love, like this paragraph that is so challenging, is if we are transformed by the renewing of our mind so that our lives are a living worship to him, a sacrifice on the altar. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to take some of our own desires and put them to death? Are we willing to take our pride and set it aside? Are we willing to take our competitiveness that I need to win and put it over there? Are we willing to take some things in our lives and mourn them because we're going to put them to death? Are we willing to rejoice of some things that may be hard for us to rejoice about, if we're honest? These are difficult, but if we do, we will be good and well-pleasing to him, reflecting who Jesus is. Because the fact of the matter is, this paragraph is about Jesus. That Jesus offered himself as the ultimate sacrifice dedicated to his Father's will, not his. That he gave himself for the church, for you and for I, for others. That he loved us with a genuine love, with both words and actions, not religious pretense. That Jesus hates what's evil. He loves what's good. He died even for an evil person to make them good. Jesus loved the brothers and sisters of his church with brotherly affection. That he was dishonored so that you and I might be honored. He was a man of great zeal. He rejoiced in hope. He endured tribulation. He was in constant prayer. Jesus was generous. He became poor that we might know richness in him. He has shown us hospitality. He's been a friend of sinners, even you and me, welcoming us in. He's loved his enemies. He didn't carry a sword in his hand. He had nails. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't understand what they're doing. He rejoiced with those who rejoiced, and he wept with those who wept. He unites people in harmony of every tribe, every tongue, every nation. We are all together as one. He associates with the lowly. He even took a repentant thief to paradise with him. And he's in relationship with you. See, this is about Jesus. And if we are truly being transformed to be like him, then it's going to be more like us each day. That we'll be on this path. And these paragraphs are really hard, let's be honest. There's a lot here that challenges me. It's kind of like a maturity pop quiz. I'm not sure I passed. But it gives me the path forward. There's a lot to consider here. When we live like Jesus, when we live like these paragraphs, we will be united. We will be as one. We will be one body with many parts in the beauty that God designed that to be. Paul wants us to live like Jesus so that Jesus' body is one. That was his intention for the Roman church. It's my prayer for us today. Would you pray with me, please? Father, would you bring us together as one? Would you do so because we're learning how to love you? Father, we know that you are so kind and gracious. You're so patient with us as we stumble our way through this. God, I'm sure that as we've walked through these paragraphs, there's certain things that jump out to each of us as particularly hard. Would you convict us on those things? Don't let them go away. Don't let us off that easy. But grow us. Show us your grace, but show us your truth in those areas. Father, would you make us as individuals to be more like Jesus so that us as a church can be more like Jesus? That we can be your hands and feet living in this world, trying to make an impact as best we can for you, for your glory, for your name's sake, not ours. So that we can love like you love. God, we thank you for these paragraphs. And I pray that this week we would be diligent in continuing to prayerfully dig in and reflect. That we would be humble, we'd be discerning in what it is you have for us in this. And God, I pray that as we gather next week, we would be ever more honoring and glorifying of you and reflecting you better all the time. So, Father, we ask this in Jesus' name.